Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the top stories first. An Afghan soldier has been killed and 3 others injured after a firefight broke out between unidentified gunmen and Western forces at the Kabul airport. The clash comes after United States President Joe Biden warned of potential terrorist attacks against the Hamid Karzai International Airport. Speaking at the White House, Biden said he still hopes to complete the heartbreaking evacuation from Afghanistan by the end of this month. Israeli troops have martyred another Palestinian youth in the Arab city of Nazareth. Witnesses say the occupation forces also injured another Palestinian man with live bullets. Meanwhile, in occupied Jerusalem, dozens of illegal settlers under the protection of Israeli army stormed Al-Aqsa Mosque. The U.S. Special Envoy for North Korea says Washington does not have hostile intent towards Pyongyang and is open for dialogue anytime and any place. Sung Kim said this while speaking to reporters after meeting with his South Korean counterpart, No Kyu-duk, in Seoul. Sung said the ongoing U.S.-South Korea military exercises are long-standing, routine, and purely defensive in nature. These were the top stories, news in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. Start from Afghanistan, where an Afghan soldier has been killed and 3 others injured after a firefight broke out between unidentified gunmen and Western forces at the Kabul airport. The clash comes after U.S. President Joe Biden warned of a potential terrorist attack against the airport. Kabul's Hamid Karzai International Airport has been a scene of chaos since the Taliban seized the Afghan capital on August 15th. As U.S. and international forces try to evacuate citizens and vulnerable Afghans. Speaking at the White House, President Joe Biden said he still hopes to complete the heartbreaking evacuation the end of this month. He warned that a lot could still go wrong amid the ongoing evacuation from the country. The U.S. President said the Taliban have been cooperative in extending their perimeter. He added he would support sanctions against the group depending on the context. The Taliban have confirmed that foreign forces have not sought to extend the withdrawal deadline. Meanwhile, former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley has blamed President Biden for the embarrassing failure in Afghanistan. She said the U.S. surrendered $85 billion worth of weapons to the Taliban. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation has urged the Afghan leadership to ensure that the country does not become a platform for terrorism again. A virtual meeting of the G7 countries has been called on Tuesday to discuss the Afghanistan crisis. Meanwhile, evacuation process is underway to repatriate people from the war-torn country. The United States has enlisted the help of 6 commercial airlines to help transport people after their withdrawal. The United Kingdom says it has evacuated over 5,700 people from the country since 13th of August. Japan will also be sending a military aircraft to Afghanistan to bring back its citizens as well as Afghans working with its embassy and missions. Meanwhile, the Taliban say hundreds of its fighters are heading to the Panjshir Valley after local state officials refused to hand it over peacefully. The valley is one of the few parts of Afghanistan not yet controlled by the group. Flickers of resistance have begun to emerge, with some ex-government troops gathering in the valley north of Kabul. This comes after Ahmad Massoud, the son of anti-Soviet resistance leader Ahmad Shah Massoud, refused to surrender areas in his control. He called for the formation of a comprehensive government with the participation of the Taliban, but warned of an unavoidable war if the group refuses to hold dialogue. He also denied his forces' involvement in the seizure of 3 districts in the northern province of Baghlan last week, blaming it on local militants. Now, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says an inclusive political settlement in Afghanistan is the best way forward. In a tweet, Qureshi urged the international community to engage in the support of Afghan people. He said that on the request of several European governments, Islamabad is facilitating evacuation from the war-torn country. Meanwhile, Germany has praised Pakistan for its cooperation in repatriation of its citizens. Berlin's ambassador said withdrawal of its people from Kabul would have not been possible without Islamabad's support. Now, Israeli troops have martyred another Palestinian youth in the Arab city of Nazareth. Witnesses say the occupation forces also injured another Palestinian man with live bullets. Meanwhile, in occupied Jerusalem, dozens of illegal settlers under the protection of Israeli army stormed Al-Aqsa Mosque. Earlier, the occupation army also raided the archaeological area in Sebastia, northwest of Nablus. In Gaza, Palestinian groups pledged to continue protests along the border to pressure Israel to remove its blockade. This comes amid outrage over the reports of Egypt closing the Rafah crossing on its border with the Gaza Strip until further notice. Now, the US says it does not have hostile intent towards Pyongyang and is open for dialogue anytime and any place. The country's special envoy, Sung Kim, said this while addressing media after meeting with his South Korean counterpart in Seoul. The two sides held a talk on resumption of dialogue with Pyongyang amid the renewed tensions over the allies' ongoing military drills. They also discussed possible humanitarian aid to the country. Sung said the ongoing US-South Korea military exercises are long-standing, routine and purely defensive in nature. Now, the US-led coalition says it has shot down a drone in eastern Syria in the vicinity of mission support site Green Village. Coalition spokesperson Colonel Wayne Marotta said a fighter jet shot down the unmanned aerial vehicle after it was deemed a threat. But he did not reveal details that who launched the drone. The Green Village base was established in 2018 to protect the largest Somar oil field in Deir ez-Zor. Now, the Arab coalition says it has destroyed an explosive-laden drone launched by Yemen's Houthis towards southern Saudi Arabia. In a statement, Arab coalition said Houthis attempted to target Khamis Mushat city in the latest outstrike. Now, the coalition said Houthis continue to deliberately and systematically target civilian infrastructure. The coalition said it is taking operational measures to foil attempts to target populated areas and civilians' objects in the kingdom. Meanwhile, the United Nations has called on Yemen's warring parties to silence the guns and to fully implement the Hudaybiyah agreement. Moving on now, Iran's new administration says it is willing to engage in reasonable negotiations to revive the 2015 nuclear deal with the world. Iran's foreign minister designate Hossein Amir Abdullahian announced that the new Iran government will not tie itself to the 2015 nuclear agreement. He said Iran will never turn away from a dialogue table. However, he said the negotiations must serve the Iranian people's interests. Earlier, Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi censured Japan for refusing to release Iran's frozen assets in Tokyo's banks. In a meeting with the visiting Japanese Foreign Minister Toshimitsu Motegi, Raisi said there is no justification for the delay in unfreezing the assets. Now, in India's capital, New Delhi, cases of women's rape have increased by 43%, while overall crime against women has jumped by 63%. Overall, the country sees 88 women rape cases every single day, which means 3 women are raped in India every hour. Details in this report.
In the year 2019, Indian opposition leader Rahul Gandhi called India the rape capital of the world due to the shockingly high number of gruesome sexual violence cases. 2 years after that statement,
The situation in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's so-called Shining India is getting even worse. Recent crime data released by Delhi police shows that Modi's India has become increasingly unsafe for women. Crimes against women have soared 63% higher, with 833 women raped only in the capital so far this year. Female molestation has increased 39%, with 226 women murdered. Most recent data by India's National Crime Records Bureau shows that 88 women are raped every day in India, which makes it 3 every hour. According to the World Population Review, over 22 women were raped in India in 2021, which is second only to South Africa with 66,000. The special Indian NGO for children called Cry says minors are the biggest victims of sexual assaults in India. They said it has increased by a whopping 500% over the past decade, and now one sexual crime against children in India every 15 minutes. India's Ministry of Women Development has also pointed out that sexual harassment in government offices is rising. In fact, the state of affairs of women's rights in India can be measured by the fact that killing a girl right after her birth is on the rise in the country.
Now, Pakistan's COVID-19 death toll has surpassed 25,000, with 80 more fatalities reported in the past 24 hours. The country's health ministry reported more than 3,700 positive cases overnight, as the caseload exceeds 1.12 million. The ministry said more than 1 million people have recovered so far, while over 5,300 are in critical condition currently. Meanwhile, 46.4 million vaccine doses have been administered so far across the country, and more than 13.4 million have been fully vaccinated. Now, India has recorded more than 25,000 new coronavirus cases and 389 deaths in the past 24 hours. Globally, the coronavirus caseload has surpassed 211 million, while the death toll is over 4.4 million. More details about the pandemic in this report.
Nations reel under reimposed drastic curbs as authorities struggle to rein in outbreaks of the Indian Delta variant of the coronavirus. As the winter season approaches, experts warn that flu jabs could fail to protect this season, as COVID-19 prevented laboratories from gathering sufficient data on dominant variants. Vietnam has reported its deadliest day since the pandemic started, while the country enters the first day of strict lockdown. New Zealand has extended its lockdown until Friday, with Auckland likely to remain shut beyond that. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison said the country must begin to ease strict COVID-19 restrictions once vaccination rates increase.
And we must adjust our mindset. Cases will not be the issue once we get above 70%. Dealing with serious illness, hospitalisation, ICU capabilities, our ability to respond in those circumstances, that will be our goal. And we will live with this virus as we live with other infectious diseases. That's what the national plan is all about, was always about. That's how we designed it, and that's how it needs to be implemented.
China's health authority reported no new locally transmitted cases of COVID-19 for the first time since July. Meanwhile, Taiwan announced it will administer its domestically developed COVID-19 vaccine. In India, experts warned of an imminent third wave and sought better medical preparedness for children who might be at similar risk as adults. Iran has reported its highest single-day COVID-19 death toll of the pandemic.
More news coming up in this news bulletin after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, bandits have released 15 more students kidnapped last month from a Baptist school in northwest Nigeria. The school officials said these students were released after parents raised and paid an undisclosed amount of ransom to the kidnappers. Armed bandits raided a university and abducted more than 100 students on July 5th from the school in Kaduna State. Baptist Convention President Israel Akanji said 63 more students are yet to be released. Kaduna State schools remain closed due to the threat of kidnappings, as bandits have abducted over 1,000 students for ransom since December. Now, in Mexico, a mother and her 5 children have died after Hurricane Grace triggered a landslide in the state of Veracruz. There were sombre scenes and the deceased were laid to rest. According to reports, the youngest victim was just 15 days old. The father and a 7-year-old who is in hospital are the sole survivors of the family. Grace slammed into Veracruz as a Category 3 hurricane, blowing maximum sustained winds of over 200 kilometers per hour. A total of 8 deaths have been attributed to the hurricane so far. Now, Asian shares and oil prices have bounced as a wave of bargain hunting have beaten down markets. China shares bounced back after last week's sharp drop as authorities reported no new local COVID-19 cases for the first time since July. Shanghai Composite gained 1.3% and the Shenzhen Component gained almost 2%. Meanwhile, Japan's Nikkei 225 led the Hang Seng lower as they fell over 2% and 0.2% respectively. N.KOREA Sweden's Anna Nordqvist has won the Women's British Open title and Canossy Championship course, Scotland. This is her third major triumph, making her the first Swedish to clinch the title since 2003. Nordqvist held her nerve to beat Denmark's Nana Madsen by one shot in a tense final hole. The overnight leaders were locked at 12 under, heading into the 18th in a thrilling final round, but it was Nordqvist who delivered under pressure with a par after Madsen shot a double bogey. England's Georgia Holt, Swede Madeleine Sangstorm and American Lizette Sellers tied for second place at 11 under. And now let's have a look at how the weather is doing around the world. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.news.